Hey guys, this is Gary, and basically I'm remaking a video I did a while ago in which I combined the two images we're about to look at. This time I'm going to approach this as if it was a professional retouching job. Two images, this one and this one. We're going to combine them to make this one. So we'll start with this. We're going to lower the exposure. We're going to increase vibrance. I lowered the exposure too much. Increase vibrance. And yes, increase clarity. Yeah, okay. And contrast while we're at it. Okay, I want this sky to be really kind of vivid. Okay, next image. So, so we're going to lower the exposure and increase vibrance. We're also going to go down to transform. This is new. The transform section is new in Lightroom 6 if you have the latest version. And I'm just going to choose level, and that automatically straightens out the horizon, which was a little off. Okay, back to the basic panel. All right, so the last thing is I really want to push the vibrance all the way because I want these shadows to go a little bluish. That'll hopefully become clear as to why. But those of you that shoot images with a lot of shadow and do any kind of color manipulation know that shadows aren't actually gray, they're blue. There's a lot of cool tones in shadows. All right, anyway, so that's all we're going to do with this image. Starting with this image that I just finished, I'm going to go edit in, open as smart object in Photoshop. Now, smart objects are a different animal for a really oversimplified definition, which will cover our purposes only. A smart object, see, it came into Photoshop on a layer, and there's this little thingy in the corner, the lower right-hand corner. If I double-click on that, it brings me to what's known as Adobe Camera Raw, which is basically the exact same editing engine that's available to you in Lightroom. So the point being, I can access all of my Lightroom edits, all my Lightroom adjustments right here. Smart objects are very cool to work with. Let's leave it at that. Okay, back to Lightroom. And I'm going to choose this image and do the same thing. Edit in, open as smart object in Photoshop for the exact same reason, actually. And here we are. So now we've got both of these images in Photoshop. We're going to start with this, and what we want to do is create what's known as a mask. So I'm going to do that by going to the Quick Selection tool, and I'm simply going to drag across the sky, and it kind of jumps down and selects most of the sky. And then if I come over here and drag a little bit, it just grabs the rest of the sky over here. But it didn't do a very good job. And if I zoom in, you'll see that it really did miss a lot of stuff, right? It missed here, it missed here, it missed there, here, here. There's a lot of stuff it missed. And I've tried going in and selecting all that stuff manually, but God, what a waste of time. There's a much easier way to do it. You go to select, similar, and having done that, not only does it select all the stuff that I wanted, it selected a lot of stuff I didn't want. Hey, great. But that's fine. We can easily fix that. So I'm going to go to select and mask, which is new. It used to be refine edge, whatever. So most people head right for the refine edge brush tool. We're not going to do that. We're going to go to a regular brush. Now this is inside of the select and mask environment. We're not actually in the Photoshop interface right now. So I'm going to select a brush, and it acts just like a brush would in Photoshop if you were painting on masks. So the thing I want to do though, because anything that's white is actually not selected. Okay? It's important to understand that. So I need to come up here, and I need to click on this minus sign. That basically means subtract from selection. So when I paint with this brush, watch what happens. It turns that area white, subtracting it because it was a selection. Anything that's a selection is punching through. All right. It's confusing, I know. Used to confuse the hell out of me. Anyway, I'm going to take this brush and paint over the water. Oh, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We actually get to have the polygonal lasso tool in here, which is kind of cool. I need to go subtract the selected area, which is the area that's actually punching through here. So if I can't see it, if it's covered up by white, it's not selected. All right, that's a really straight edge, but that's okay. We'll fix that. All right, so I'm going to come back to my regular brush, and I'm just going to brush this stuff out. And then let's see. We've got most everything, but we need to work on this window over here because you'll see why. So I'm going to go back to my polygonal lasso tool, making sure it's on subtract from selection. I'm going to come over here and just let it cover up this area. Come back around, close it off. Boom, done, perfect. And that's pretty good. So now this window, which is actually a door, but it doesn't matter what it is, we need to fix it. So I'm going to come around here, come down, around, back up, close it off, boom. Same thing here, come down, and right to about there, then come down here. Okay, if this looks like, if you're going, what the hell is he doing? I'm basically just I'm editing the selection. Basically, I'm using tools that allow me to edit the selection. So I'm painting with a brush, and I'm going to paint over all these. They're not called window panes. They're whatever they're called. The things in between the window panes that hold them together, made out of wood. What are they called? Who cares? Whatever they're called, I'm painting over them because we don't need them. You'll see why I'm doing this. Even if you don't understand what the hell I'm doing, you will see why. It's okay if you don't understand what I'm doing, because if you don't understand what I'm doing, then just watch this video as a sort of a presentation of the potential available in Photoshop. Okay, so I think that's probably going to work. All right, so let's see where we are. Okay, we got to fix this pole up here. And I'm going to go back to my polygonal lasso tool. And once again, we're inside of the select and mask interface. We're not actually in the Photoshop editing environment. We're in select and mask. It looks very similar. I guess Adobe knows why they keep changing the interface for this particular thing, which used to be called Refine Edge. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. So now I'm going to go to the most famous tool in this particular interface. That's the Refine Edge brush tool. And I'm going to let it do its thing. I'm going to let it analyze this edge so it can get those little pieces of hardware that are sticking out. That's pretty good. Okay. And then down here on the ferry, which we haven't really looked at that much yet, there's a lot of stuff up here that there's no way I'm going to select it all. It's just too crazy. So I'm going to let the Refine Edge brush tool work its magic on this, which I have to say does a really good job. It does save hours of time if you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, like any other tool, it's pretty much going to waste your time. Okay, I don't think the Refine Edge brush tool is going to do a very good job on the side of the ferry, so I'm going to go back to a regular brush, making sure it's still set to subtract from selection what it is, and I'm just going to paint over this, and I'll get in close to the edge here, make my brush smaller, and try and do all this freehand, which is very awkward for me because I'm a lefty, and this thing's at a very weird angle. And I'm going over the border there. I can see that. I'm really doing a horrible job. Oh my God. All right, so I'm going to go to add to and then try and brush back some of my sloppiness. because again, my excuse is it's a very awkward angle for me to be painting vertically up, and I can't rotate the canvas the way I could with the R key and in Photoshop. Those of you that know that key command, I can't do that. I don't think. No, I can't. So, but I just noticed the R key switches my brush in here. I don't know why. All right. Oh, I'm getting sidetracked here. That's pretty good. Actually, this is going to be a really good mask, I have to say. So let's zoom out, and now we're going to come over here and go invert. That is now deselecting the sky and selecting the ground. So what do we want to do? We want to output this to a layer mask. If you're not seeing this, it's because your output settings is twirl up. Click on that little tiny arrow to twirl it down. Output to, you want to choose layer mask, and you hit OK. There we go. Now the sky is gone. So now we're going to take our move tool by hitting the V key, and we're going to drag this up to the tab for the other image, still holding, clicking and dragging. I'm going to come down and hold the shift key before I let go of the image, and now I'm going to let go. So what that does is it perfectly centers the image. Now the size of this photo is a little smaller than the underlying photo, so we're going to take our free transform tool by going Command or Control T. I'm going to hold down the Option key to grow it from the center. I'm going to hold down the Shift key to keep it in proportion. I'm going to drag up to the borders of the underlying image. It's okay if I go a little bit beyond, which I did. And I'm going to hit the checkbox in the options bar, and there we go. Okay, so if I come over here and look, there's a lot of what's known as fringing. Like, this is pretty sloppy. So the thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to work on the layer mask itself. I'm going to take a polygonal lasso tool, which is right here. I'm going to set its feather to 1 pixel. I want a slightly soft selection edge. And I'm going to very carefully go around. I need to get a little closer. Come down. I need to zoom in for this. I need to. Okay. All right. That's bad. That's bad. I already screwed up. All right. I can fix that though. I'm going to go right to the edge. Come up. And wow, I really did a terrible job here. Okay. So now I'm going to go subtract from selection by clicking on that icon up in the options bar. And now I'm going to start outside the selection and clean up the mess I made. So I'm just going to come down here along this white edge ever so slightly larger than the edge or beyond the edge, and then come back out here like this, come back up and close it off, and that selects that that subtracts from the selection. I only said that selects from the subtraction, which would be really odd and wouldn't make any sense. Okay, now I got to do the same thing here. So I have to go add to selection. Now I can use the polygonal lasso tool, and when I'm done, we will see the marching ants. Okay, close it off. There we go. Now I've got our marching ants here. The reason I'm doing this is because I've got what's known as fringing. Up here we have a problem. So this time I'm just going to hold down the Alt key to go to subtract from selections, click outside the selection, go in, go up, back around, close it off, boom. Okay, good. So now if I look at the layer mask by itself, which I can do by holding down the Alt key, I can see I got a really ragged edge here. So what I'm going to do is fill this selection with black. And I'm going to hit OK. All right, so now if I deselect, you see I have the soft edge. It's going to look much better. If I hold down the Alt key and click on the layer mask again, there we go. I got rid of all that fringing. So that's good. It looks much better. And I missed a whole section down here. Oh, oh God. All right. So I got to do this too. Um, I think I'm going to shut up and speed up the video so you don't have to listen to me yammer on. Okay, I made a selection around this area and I've still got my mask selected. I'm going to use a secret key command, which is Alt Delete, and that will fill that selection with the foreground color. Boom. And it did. So if I deselect, there we go. I got rid of all that bizarre fringing. Okay. Uh, so what else? What else? Let's look at the roof over here. Yeah, that's not very good. There's a little fringing. You see that kind of white border? So there's another way we can fix this. So check this out. If I hold down the Command or Control key, Command on the Mac, Control on the PC, if I hold down that key and click on the layer mask, I can pull it up as a selection. If I zoom out, there you go. See, I now have the marching ants, which tells me it's a selection. Okay, that's good. It's selecting the dock and the ferry. I want to invert this selection, and we already know how to do that. We go select inverse. Now it's selecting the sky. All right. So what I want to do is change the size of this selection. So if I go select, modify, expand by 1 pixel and hit OK, it just shifted in slightly. All right. So now with my layer mask active, which it is, I'm going to do something else that many of you may not know about. I'm going to hold down the Command or Control key and hit the letter H. That hides the selection. It doesn't deselect, but it does hide the selection so I can't see it. Now I'm going to take a brush. I'm going to make it really small, and I'm going to paint with black along that edge. And that should, oh, I need to make my opacity of the brush 100%. Okay, so now that should, and it does, get rid of that fringing, right? Pretty cool. Okay. And if you don't know what I'm doing here, if none of what I did makes sense, that's okay. It will someday. It will. It definitely will, I promise. You got to stick with it. Yeah, this looks weird. And this is weird. Okay. Now, just so you know, by way of review, I held down the Command or Control key to click on the layer mask, which brought up a selection from that layer mask. I then inverted the selection so the sky was selected. I then went up to select, modify, expand by 1 pixel. That pushed the selection a little bit into the roof here as well as everywhere else along the edge. And then I painted with black to erase 1 pixel row's worth of crud, basically. Okay. All right. So now we have to get down to the details here. What do I want to do? What do I want to do? I want to click on the bottom layer. Oh, I still have, I'm going to deselect. Deselect. Remember I hid the selection? It was still active. It was just invisible. Okay, so now Command or Control T. I'm going to drag up to really expand the sky, and then I'm just going to pull it down, holding down the Shift key so I don't lose my horizontal orientation. All right, that's pretty good. Nice. Okay, we're done. That looks totally realistic. No, of course it doesn't. It looks ridiculous. Not bad over here, but here it's just, forget it. So I'm going to go up to my layer mask, and you know what? I'm going to name this layer dock-ferry, and I'm going to name this layer sky, so I know what the purpose of these layers are. I mean, I know it seems ridiculous for only 2 layers, but if you get in the habit of naming your layers early, you will be glad you did, because it's not uncommon when you're doing real compositing to have, 30, 40, 50, 100 layers. No lie. Okay, so now I'm going to click on this Doc Ferry Layers mask, and I'm going to hold down the Command key to call up its selection again, and I'm going to go up to the Select menu and go Save Selection. And I'm going to call it Doc Ferry, oddly enough. I'm going to hit OK. So what just happened there? Well, I saved this as a selection. So if I deselect, and then I go to the Select menu and go Load Selection, and where I want to load the Doc Ferry mask, and it says Channel over here. I don't need to explain what that is. That's kind of beyond the scope of this video. But I'm just going to hit OK, and boom, there's my selection. Now, why did I do that? Well, because we're about to alter the layer mask, and I would lose this selection, or I would change the selection had I done so without saving it first. So I can always get back to this selection, which is basically, let me deselect, which is basically this. Totally black sky, totally white Doc Ferry. Okay? We're going to change that. So let's do that. So I'm going to grab a brush, which I apparently already have, and I'm going to make my foreground color white by hitting my X key, and I'm going to go up and change the opacity to something really low, like around 13 should work. And I'm also going to hit my left bracket key to make my brush really big. And then what I'm going to start to do here is allow some of the sky from this layer to show through. So if I hold down the Shift key and click on the layer mask, I temporarily disable it. So you can see this is the sky. It's awful. It's terrible. But we want some of this to show through, but some of it, not all of it. So how can we do that? Well, due to the magic of transparency in Photoshop, we can gradually make this mask, which is now totally black, ever more transparent, allowing the brighter sky to show through to the degree that we feel is right. Wow, that was a mouthful. Okay, so I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to paint across, and I'm just going to do pretty much everything in this first pass. But I've only given it 15% opacity. Let's look at the layer mask and see what I've actually done. See, now that black isn't as deep as it was before. It's turning really dark gray. Now this time, I'm just going to kind of swipe down and a little bit like that. And this time, I'm just going to pretty much swipe over the ferry a couple times. Now this time I'm going to come over and make another pass all the way across. What I'm trying to do is get a realistic blend of the sky. And if I come over here, okay, now to me I just went too far. I went too far. I need to get some of that back, and that's why we saved the selection. Okay, so if I go Select, Load Selection, and then go down to Doc Ferry, which is what we named. Don't worry about this stuff up here. It's this. That's the selection that I saved. Choose that. New selection. Hit OK. Bam, there's my selection. Now, if I invert this selection, Photoshop can't touch anything that's not selected. So I can take my brush, make its foreground color black, and if I paint over here, I'm very subtly darkening the sky, but I can't touch the building. If I didn't have this selection, when I painted with black, it was going to make the building look a little duller. It was going to affect the mask on the building, and I don't want that. I want that mask on the building to remain pure white, which, as we all know, white reveals. I hope that's clear to you. I know it's confusing, but it works. Okay, so when I go Command or Control H to hide my selection, and I look at that, I'm pretty pleased with it. Okay, so I'm gonna go Command or Control D to deselect, and I'm gonna swipe over here. Whoops, undo that. I need to make my foreground color white again. I'm going to swipe over the ferry again because I want the sky and this side of the photo to be pretty yellowy. Um, Okay, I've got kind of a very subtle darkish spot there, so I'm going to lower the opacity even more to like 6. And I'm going to go like that. Okay, one more time. Yep, I'm liking that. So I'm going to come over here and do that. And then right on the corner. Okay, that's pretty good actually. So now we've got a decent, the point is, I need this blend to look realistic. It has to look like the sky would have looked like at sunrise. And on this side, it would be much yellowier than it would as you get to the left of the photo, which would be more west. So the sun is rising on the east. You know what I'm saying. All right, and actually I think that's pretty good. A couple things here. I'm going to go to my polygonal lasso tool. All right, yeah, this edge looks a little bizarre. So what I'm going to do is feather my... Now, you know what? I'm going to leave it at... I'm going to leave it at 1 pixel feather. So I'm going to come down here, go right along that entire... It's a little bit curved, just a little bit. I'm going to go right just below that edge there, come back around to create a selection. And looking at the layer mask, all right, this is going to be a little weird and confusing. I hope you understand what I'm about to do. I'm going to come in here and let's just look at the mask itself. Now, I can't paint with black here because this is gray. What I'm going to do is grab my clone stamp tool. Yes, you can use a clone stamp tool on a mask. I'm going to click here. I'm going to grab pixels from this mask up here and paint them along the edge, then grab over here and paint along this edge and keep grabbing there and come over here and stop. Okay, I think I got the results I was looking for. I'm going to drop the selection. I'm going to hold down the Alt key to click on the mask again. Yes, there we go. We have a much better edge there. Let's see, what is that? Okay, yeah, we're looking pretty good here. Look at how using similar up in the select menu, similar, really did a great job of selecting all the stuff that the quick mask tool didn't get, even in here, right? So that's really great. A lot of people don't know about the similar command because that's really old school Photoshop stuff. But, you know, the magic wand, the quick selection tool is not a perfect tool. None of these tools are. As you can see, you have to use several tools to get the selection you want, which gives you the layer mask you want. Because guess what? Selections are the same as masks. They're the exact same thing. They're just implemented differently. All right. The last thing, I'm guessing that this water needs to be a little bluer because it should be reflecting the blue in the sky. So I'm going to come up here and grab what is known as a adjustment layer. I want hue saturation. I'm going to change its mode to colorize, and I'm going to take the hue slider and move it toward blue. Obviously, I'm making the entire image blue, and that's not what I want, but that's a good start. So I'm going to give it a little more, maybe a little less saturation, actually, because this is going to be a very subtle effect, very subtle. Okay. Good with that. Now, it came in with its own layer mask. If I hit my X key to make my foreground color black over down here in the color picker, and then I use Alt Delete, that fills that adjustment layers mask with black, so now you can no longer see the adjustment I made. Okay, that's what I want, believe it or not. So, once again, grabbing a brush with the opacity, let's set it to be about, 12 is fine. I'm going to paint with white. So I need to hit my D key. That brings me back to the default state of the color picker, which is white foreground, black background. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. And with 12% opacity on this brush, I'm going to paint across until I start seeing a little bit of blue come through into that water. And I am. So I'm just going to keep going here and keep building more blue, which is peeking through. And I think I went too far. So I'm going to hit the X key to make my foreground color black, and I'm going to try and back off a little bit. This is a very subtle effect. If you go too far, it doesn't look realistic. But I think that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit less. Yeah. I think we're there. I think that looks realistic. Doesn't it? Yes, it does. So that would mean we're done. Okay, so there's a lot of pretty advanced stuff I did here. Well, not a lot, but enough to make it confusing if you're a beginner. That's cool. Look, I didn't learn this stuff overnight. I've been using Photoshop for years and years. So you will pick up things along the way, as I did. So if you didn't understand what was going on here, that's fine. Like I said, then look at this as sort of a demonstration of Photoshop's potential. All right, this video is way too long, so I'm going to stop, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.